Everyone has heard of asbestos, and today most people know that it is in some way dangerous. But up until now, as to what that danger was, or is, well, I certainly couldn't tell you. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, asbestos is a naturally occurring fibrous mineral. Its valuable insulation and fire retardant properties have been exploited for hundreds of years. Indeed, around the turn of the century, that is the 19th century, it was hailed as nature's wonder fibre and was used to insulate pipework, walls and ceilings. In addition, asbestos was included in many commercial products like ceiling tiles and wall panels, some of which are still to be found today. Asbestos comes in three forms: crocidolite, or blue asbestos, chrysotile, or white asbestos, and amosite, known as brown asbestos. Originally it was thought that they posed different health risks, but today they're all treated as being equally hazardous. In the 1950s, asbestos started to be linked with health problems. Research showed that its fine fibres, when inhaled, can reach the furthest parts of the lungs, where they can remain intact for years, eventually causing either asbestosis, also known as fibrosis, mesothelioma, or even lung cancer. I've come to this edit suite to look back at the news programmes and the headlines from the 60s and 70s, and asbestos was certainly often in the news. Today, well, you hardly ever hear about it, but does that mean the problem's gone away? Brian McCauley is the Managing Director of Demountables, a Croydon company which specialises in office conversions. I asked him, has the problem gone away?
Probably 95% of the contracts we carry out, asbestos is a big issue. We're always very keen to have reports of the building before we start work. Unfortunately, a lot of buildings don't have asbestos registers, so really we're on our own in that sense. So it's proceed with caution is the phrase that we use with the guys. And they all know that as soon as there's the slightest hint of it, stop work, people off site, and then start taking it very, very seriously.
Anyone who has the responsibility of building maintenance or repairs cannot afford to be complacent about asbestos, especially when those buildings are used by the public in large numbers. Dave Phillips is head of asset management for the borough of Spelthorne.
Well, we had thought it had all gone, but we knew there were still materials being produced, so there is still material in there. We may not know every single part of it because some of it can be encapsulated within the building, covered by other materials, and quite often it's only during refurbishment or construction of some sort that material becomes exposed.
Of course, if asbestos is in good condition and is located in such a position that it presents no danger of being disturbed, then another option is to leave it in place. In this instance, you must label it clearly with an asbestos warning sign or some other warning system, so its presence is immediately obvious to anyone in the vicinity. Some damaged asbestos can be made safe by repairing it and either sealing it or enclosing it to prevent further damage.
If asbestos is in a stable situation, and it's not damaged or anything like that, it's not probably releasing any fibres. If you could simply paint over the asbestos, that would encapsulate it and you would stop the release of any fibres. By removing the asbestos, you may actually increase the fibre release because you're damaging it in removal. So you have to balance all the time the options of taking it out or not taking it out.
If asbestos is likely to release dust and cannot be easily repaired and protected, or it's likely to be disturbed during some routine maintenance work, it must be removed by a suitably qualified person licensed by the Health and Safety Executive.
The Health and Safety Executive advise that you have a asbestos register. I don't think that's mandatory, but that's the advice. And by having an asbestos register, it means you will have identified all the areas of known asbestos. You can then analyse them through companies like Square Root that we've used for ours to decide what action needs to be taken in the future. And by that way you can then reduce the risk of anybody going onto site because everybody should know where it is.
There's a lot of products even today that can fool you as if they look like asbestos. Really, I think you've just got to be over cautious and take no chances. Obviously that can cause problems though because you may come across a product that isn't asbestos and you can lose a lot of time on site and have to take people off the site, and obviously it's costing people money and delaying the project. So really the idea is to, any product that you find that you're suspicious of, is get it tested quickly and by a professional organisation.
The bottom line is, don't take any risks. Seek expert advice.